Hey guys, Landry Peden here. I am coming to you to talk to you about a very sensitive subject and one that often I feel like gets overlooked. We see a lot of one side of this particular topic, and I'm here to discuss what it's like to be on the other side. So, that specific topic is on narcissistic abuse. There's a lot of information, really good information out there right now about what to look for, what are the characteristics, what are the red flags, like how do they attract their victim and blah blah blah, like all these things, the definition of supply, because when you are with a narcissist, you are a supply. But there's not much talk about those of us, including myself, that have survived this type of relationship. And this can look like several different types of relationships. It doesn't just have to be romantic. In my case, it was a romantic relationship. But in some cases, it's a parent, it's a coworker, it's a friend. It could be another relative. It doesn't have to be boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever that looks like. And it also goes both ways. It's not just women that are abused by narcissists. There's narcissistic women out there too. I know several men that have encountered that, and it's not fun. And for those of you that have never been through it, I'm really glad that you haven't, because I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But for those of you that have, I'm here to be a voice for you, because as a survivor, there's a lot of things in the society that have been difficult for someone like myself or others that have gone through a similar situation to come forward and speak up about it. Because especially with narcissistic abuse, 9 times out of 10, the abuser goes unnoticed by the rest of society. They are very charismatic. They are easy to get along with. They put on a really good front. So those of us that have been abused look crazy because, oh, well, that person didn't seem to be a problem. Like, why is he a problem with you? But there's a dark side to those types of people, and I'm here to speak out about it. You know, as a narcissist survivor, it started out, you hear the term love bombing. I met this guy, and I was at a point in my life where I wasn't looking for a relationship. They say that's when it happens. And I met him, and it seemed too good to be true. Like, he was just everything I could ask for. We had a lot in common, and he liked what I liked. And then he was just telling me I was so beautiful, and he wanted to be with me every moment of every day. He would rush home from work and be with me, and take me out on dates, and make me feel special. And I was a bit skeptical, because I was like, there's no way that this guy is like this awesome. And I should have gone with my gut instinct at that time. Unfortunately, I didn't. um Shortly after we had started getting pretty serious, he ended up coming forward and talking to me about the fact that he was in the middle of a divorce. I'm like, okay, we can deal with that. I've been divorced. I get it. Whatever, you know. And so then I ended up feeling bad, because I'm a helper and I'm too giving. And he was telling me that he was still living with this person and dealing with all of this, and it was very stressful. So I was like, I'm a homeowner. I've got a big house. It's just my son and I. Why don't you come stay with me, since we're together all the time anyway? Come on over. That was the biggest mistake I could have made. So he moves in, and I quickly realize that I am not valued. Going back to the supply term, you know, in my case with him, it definitely was financial and a comfort, because I paid for everything. I had a home, a very nice home, that he was able to live in rent free and not lift a finger, because I did the cooking, I did the cleaning, I did the errand running. I paid all the bills. So, that was an easy life. Who wouldn't want that, right? And, I at that time didn't understand what I was doing because I was so used to living on my own because I had lived in that home for years, single. And so it wasn't any different for me until I started like feeling kind of the effects of like having another adult person living with me and not helping. Um, but I stepped up and did what I thought was the right thing to do, and I continued to support this individual. So during that time, I felt bad, and he was giving me just enough to make me feel like I wasn't just being used. But then quickly into that time frame, the isolation started. So that was the first red flag, but it was too late for me to get out. And I'll explain that in a bit. So the isolation began as far as I went from being a very social person. I had several friends in the area. I had been established there for several years. Um, I was no longer allowed to speak to certain friends. I was no longer allowed to go out with friends, even if it was to go to breakfast, coffee, lunch, didn't matter. Even if it was a female, didn't matter. Um, was not allowed to go see my family anymore. Um, the first Thanksgiving that I was with this individual, I brought him up to my home in Michigan, and we drove 3+ hours to get there and literally stayed for 20 minutes because he was absolutely disgusted by the thought of being there with my family. And we drove home, and that was the last time that I got to spend time with my family for 5 years. Um, I had to ask permission to do anything, even like train my clients, um, be a coach. I was coaching at a local gym, and my availability was very restricted, not because I wasn't available. I do online strength and nutrition coaching, so I'm pretty available. Um, but he did not want me out of the house. So I was limited to coaching basically 2 classes a week, which was a waste of my time because it cost me more money to drive there and back than I was actually making coaching the classes. Luckily, I love coaching. So, I didn't let it get to me there. I enjoyed the community, and that was the only time that I was allowed to be around other people. But he would also show up to the classes because he had to have eyes on me all of the time. Living under a microscope, constantly feeling like I'm being watched, like I'm being judged, like being worried about going to the grocery store to run a simple errand, like getting something for dinner. There's a quirky thing about me. I'm a almost 10-year Army veteran with PTSD, and I have some struggles that I still work on every day. I'm in counseling. I go every week, have for years. But one of the struggles that I have is when I go to a grocery store, I have to sit in my car for like 30 minutes to just kind of mentally get ready to go in. And this was even before I met this individual. So it takes me a little bit longer than the normal person. And I also have a tendency to panic when I'm inside the grocery store, especially if it's busy. There's a lot of people around. I'll sometimes forget what I was there for. Like, I will make a list, but I get frantic and like frazzled. And there's been times where I've like left the store and left stuff in my cart. I have, forgot to buy stuff. Like, the main thing that I went in for, I forgot to buy. So then I get like halfway home and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. And turn back around. Well, imagine having those feelings already, those struggles, and then have somebody that has you under a microscope and then also has this like certain timeline in his head of what is acceptable, of the amount of time that you can be gone out of his sight. So I literally would be just living in panic every single day if I had to take care of any normal activity, because if it was outside of his comfort zone as far as timeline, I would be getting text messages. I would be getting just like crucified. Like, why are you gone so long? What is taking forever? Like, where are you? Who are you with? Who are you talking to? If I didn't answer the text right away, then it would be phone calls. And then if I didn't answer the phone call, then when I got home, I would get cornered. Like, that was one of his favorite things to do, was like corner me in a room and like lecture me about how I misbehaved. And it's like, I am out spending my money to buy us food for the home. And it took me longer, one, because you're making me crazy. And two, you spent more time yelling at me while I was trying to do the things that you wanted me to do faster, you know, so I wasn't able to get them done in a timely manner. This is enough to literally drive a person crazy. And this is something that I still struggle with now. I've been away from my abuser since October, basically, when I finally stood up to him. And I still find myself, even though I'm on my own now. I literally sold everything that I own, my home, my belongings. I left it all in Ohio, packed a small little trailer, threw my dog in my car, had some of my clothes and my computer so I can continue to run my business, and left and went to Georgia with one person that lives here that is a support system, and no family, nothing. Didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I had to get out. And like, it's insane what this person did, because now that I'm on my own, I still get those panicky moments. Like, I've started doing self care again, which is something that I neglected when I was up there with him, because he didn't want me to go, or he would like go with me to my appointment. So then I couldn't relax. So, and he also hated anytime I got dressed up, anytime I put makeup on, it would be like, why are you looking that way? Take that crap off your face. Like, he never wanted me to feel good. So it's like, I always started just dressing in gym clothes, and like my posts on Instagram and Facebook were always just me lifting. It was never like, who is Landry outside of powerlifting? And now that I was so used to like being told like, this is wrong, like you got to hurry up and do this and you better get home, especially living in Atlanta now, like traffic is insane. So traffic is already enough anxiety. But then to go and do something for myself, I struggle with the guilt of doing something for myself. And then I also struggle with the fact that I still have that panic, like I have to race home, because that's what I lived for like over 5 years was, oh my God, it took me longer than 30 minutes. I need to go. Like, I got to go. I got to get there. And like, I'm like waiting for my phone to go off. And it's like, I've been away from this person for months, but I cannot get that out of my head. I have issues with, you know, talking to people, because for years this man and I were in the community, and everybody sees us and they're like, oh my gosh, you guys are like the power couple, everybody wants to be like you, like, oh, you guys are so great. And it's like, behind the scenes it was hell. And like, for people that were close to us that like saw me then and now like have stuck with me and they see me now, like more and more people are starting to realize what was really going on, because now I'm much more vocal. Like, I'm like, I don't care. I'm setting boundaries. I am going to be loud. I am going to take up space, because I just spent the last 5+ years making myself small, conforming to an idea that this person had of what I should be, changing who I am, losing who I am, to try to appease this person who's never going to be happy, because that's just who they are. So I was afraid to talk to people about what was really going on. One, because he was always paranoid that I was going to do that anyway. So he was always monitoring who I was talking to. And then two, like, people seeing us out and seeing everything's great, who's going to believe me? Because this person, again, most narcissists are very charismatic. They're usually fun to be around. They know how to talk to people. You know, what was I supposed to do? And when we would be out in the past, I would hardly speak. I was always worried about saying too much, drawing too much attention, taking the attention off of him, saying something that later I would end up getting in trouble for because I said something out of line, or I said something embarrassing, or I said something stupid. Because that was a big one. I was always told that I'm not smart. You know, he was the older, wiser one, so he's lived more. He understands more. He made me feel like a child. Um, I could never stick up for myself. I'm sure most of you have heard the term gaslighting. Every time I would finally come forward with an issue, it would be thrown back in my face. It would be this vicious cycle of just, no, I didn't say that. No, you're crazy, Landry. Like, you've got this like misconstrued view of reality. You know, like I could literally have like pictures, because this actually happened. I had pictures that were sent to me when he cheated on me, of him with the other woman, and he still denied it and tried to make it like it was my fault and that I was crazy and that I was making things up, and then it turned into, well, okay, yeah, I cheated on you, but you asked for it because you weren't supportive and you weren't giving me enough. And and then what my favorite one was, he's living with me at this point, he's making me spend all this money on him, paying all the bills, being the sole provider. He told me that we weren't together, so it doesn't count. I'm sorry. When you live with somebody and you are intimate together and they are paying for everything for you, I think that, like, whether or not I was supply for this person, in my head and in like normal society, like that's, you're together. Like, he wasn't just a roommate. And so there was always that justification of bad behavior, that he's like, well, this is out of my character, and I did it because the people before you hurt me, and you know this is not who I am, but I'm just messed up in the head. It's like, that's not an excuse to hurt somebody else. Like, I've been through plenty of trauma, but I've never cheated on anybody. I've never been abusive with anybody. So don't give me that excuse. you know um there was a lot of intimidation factors, going into, like, not being able to leave, because that's a big one, that especially now that I've come forward about leaving the relationship and being on my own, I have had a few attacks as far as like people being like, well, it must have not been that bad because you didn't leave. And it's like, or you should have left sooner, like, why didn't you leave sooner? And it's like, well, unless you've lived that life, you don't have the true understanding of what it's like to be with somebody like this. You know, there is the love bombing, first of all. So when they misbehave, I would sometimes get the, oh my God, you're the love of my life, I don't want to live without you, woe is me, like if I ever lost you, like I just couldn't go on, like all this crap, so just enough to keep you on the hook, because they beat you down so much that you lose your sense of self, you lose your sense of reality, and you're just trying to survive. So when they start to make you feel a little bit like you might have value in this relationship, it's like, okay, maybe there's hope. That was one tactic. The others, a lot of manipulation, a lot of like fear tactics. So, I'm a victim of gun violence. I have severe PTSD because of it. I go to counseling every week for it, and he would either threaten to take everything from me, threaten to harm me, or threaten to harm himself. And he would oftentimes use guns. There was multiple instances where a gun would be pulled and held to his head, and I would panic because what do I do? I had the fear every day that if I upset him too much, he was going to go in his room with all of his guns, and I was going to hear a loud bang, and then I'm going to find brains splattered all over my wall. Um, so please tell me how easy that would be to just leave when the man's living in my house and won't leave. Um, so there was that. So there's that trauma that has kind of come from that situation now, where I was re traumatized from a previous trauma by having to fear gun violence again and being manipulated to be afraid that somebody is going to harm me with a weapon or harm themselves. you know um the other one is taking everything from me. He would threaten to take away my friends, my family, my belongings, try to ruin my client base, all of these things. And that really was scary. And ultimately, he wasn't bluffing, because any of you that are watching that have seen my story over the last few months have seen that I did lose everything. I literally lost everything but my life and one of my dogs. I left it all behind because this man continued to intimidate. Um, Even after I kicked him out of the house, finally, he continued to come back on a day-to-day basis and intimidate me, and I couldn't get away. It was terrifying. And he ended up taking my son. He took two of my dogs. He ended up making it where I could no longer live in that area. And so here I am in Georgia starting over. And I'm thankful for the fact that I got out, but the devastation is just unreal. And you know had I not gone through what I went through with my ex-husband, which that's a story for another day, I don't think I would have survived this. I once lost everything. So losing everything again kind of was like second nature. This time, though, the loss of my son, like, he's still alive, not like he didn't pass, but my ex used him as a tool to manipulate me. He turned him against me. My son is 15. That's already a tough age. Any of you moms and dads out there that have teenagers, that even if there's no issues in the household, that kid, they have an attitude. They already think mom and dad are annoying. They don't want to listen. They think they got it all figured out. Well, imagine having that and then adding an adult that is telling this kid that their mom is the worst thing in the world, and like telling him things that are untrue about my character and all of these things. And then, in most states, kids can choose where they want to be and who they want to be with at like 13, 14, 15 years old. And that's what we're facing now. And again, that's another story for another day. Um, but yeah, so he turned friends against me. He turned family against me. I did not feel safe anywhere that I went. Um, there's still games being played. You know, it's just unreal what their need for control is, because that's a big thing with a narcissist, is like it's all about control. Like when I was being submissive and acting accordingly to his views, it was okay. Like, it wasn't okay for me. I was hurting and I was lonely. I mean, there was 2 years that went by of our relationship that I literally sat on the couch alone with the dogs crying, begging him to spend time with me while he was out talking to other women and going out and doing things on his own because he didn't want to be around me. But yet, when I would tell him then just leave, he wouldn't leave, because why would he want to leave? He's got it good. He doesn't have to do anything. So to feel just completely used and neglected and, just ashamed of what I allowed has been a very difficult thing. Like, it made me be very afraid to ask for help because I didn't know who in the community he had, talked to like get close to isolate me from them, like our friend circle back there. I don't know because I had reached out to some people in the community before all of this erupted, asking for help, saying I was scared, you know saying that things were bad. And I don't think that they took it seriously. And honestly, I can't blame them because, again, going back to the fact that these people are very good at like looking a certain way and making people think a certain way. Like, if you're not their supply, like, you don't have to worry. Like, they can kiss butt all day, schmooze all day, you know and they don't think twice about it. So, and then also for most of us survivors, like, we don't speak up. We're too afraid. So, okay, 5 years of not saying anything was wrong, and then finally coming forward, because what people didn't see behind the scenes is for the last like couple of years, my counseling went from just working on my PTSD and myself to how do I make a plan to safely get out of this situation, because I was that scared and it was that bad. And it never should have gotten to that point, but that was the reality. And, so now it's like I struggle to ask for help. I struggle to like trust people. I when you have somebody that close in your life that's willing to destroy everything that is about you to ultimately ruin you, it's really scary to like let somebody in after that. And that kind of gets me to my final point on all of this, like talking about survivors, because this is the part that people like forget about, is that when it's all said and done, 99.9% of the time, the narcissistic abuser walks away like nothing happened and finds their next supply, leaving the victim survivor like myself and those of you out there that are listening that have been through the same thing to pick up the pieces alone, because they have literally stripped us of everything: our belongings, our relationships, our sense of self. That was the biggest thing going through this that has been the newest kind of realization in this process, because healing from this type of abuse takes time and there are many layers and it leaves lasting damage. Like, this could last the rest of my life if I don't really start to address it, identify what the issues are. you know we're left with a sense of self that is no longer us, because we spent however long it might have been, in my case 5+ years, trying to change who we were to appease somebody else who, no matter what you do, how loving you are, how giving you are, how qualified, how amazing you could be, the most attractive person in the world, the richest person in the world, to somebody with a narcissistic mentality, it will never matter. Imagine going to work for a boss every single day of your life where you are grinding your fingers to the bone. You are performing at the highest possible level. You're getting the job done. But this person is constantly just beating you into the ground, telling you it's not good enough, but then still demanding more out of you. And you're providing them, financials, you're providing them business, whatever that is that they're looking for. And no matter what you do, it won't matter. That's what it's like to be in a narcissistic, abusive relationship. Literally, You are going in circles, you're spinning your wheels, you are just fighting every single day for that just inkling of acceptance, that inkling of validation that you are worth something, because you are constantly every day reminded by these individuals that you are not worthy, you are not valued, you are nothing more than a material, something that can provide them substance, not love, not a relationship, not anything that is healthy, and that's something that the survivors like myself have to deal with and try to fix. Like, I literally apologize for just existing. Why? I'm not doing anything wrong. Like, I walk through a door and somebody might be walking through the other way. I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. And the people will be like, what are you sorry for? I don't know. I'm sorry. Why do you keep saying I'm sorry? I don't know. I'm sorry. Like, oh my God. And I'm sure some of you have ran into people like that. But it's like a thing. Like, it is so programmed in my brain because I was taught by this person and other people in my past that everything I'm doing is wrong, that me just being who I am is wrong. So I have to apologize. Like, I have to walk on eggshells. I'm afraid to, you know, ask to go do anything, or like, I shouldn't say I'm afraid. So in newer established relationships, like friendships or like a romantic relationship, I find myself still asking permission. Like, is it okay if I go do this? Or like, I still feel the need to check in, like I am like on a time clock. Like, I'm like, hey, like I'm going here at this time and I'm going to be here at this time. And if there's a certain amount of time that passed, like I'll check in and be like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't check in. I got stuck doing such and such. And then I'm like panicking. It even trickles into my coaching relationship, um, with my coach. He's wonderful. He's absolutely wonderful. But like, like there was a situation the other day where I slept funny and I pinched the nerve in my arm, and I was afraid to tell him that I couldn't perform because I was so used to somebody telling me I wasn't good enough and somebody telling me that I was a piece of crap. So I didn't want to let my coach down. And luckily he's an amazing person and he's super accepting and he's like, we're fine, like you're good, like it happens, and I went and got a massage and everything's fine. But like, it's stuff like that, like everyday things that shouldn't be a thing are now a thing. And it's really frustrating to me, that constantly like feeling like I can't stop moving, that constant like panic of, I got to get home, or I got to like answer my phone right away, like that sense of urgency. It's like, as an online coach, that's really hard for me because I have so many clients and I'm having a really hard time setting boundaries because I was so used to having to answer text messages immediately by this person. So that has carried over into my clients where I feel guilty if I can't drop everything that I'm doing, even if what I'm doing is super, super important, and answer them the moment that that text comes through. So, now I have to live with my phone on do not disturb because otherwise I will literally never get anything done, and it sucks. It really sucks. And it's exhausting and it's embarrassing because, you know, to know that I put up with something for so long and knew that I shouldn't be there, but it couldn't go, is like really, really difficult, especially because like I know I'm a strong person physically and mentally, like the things I've overcome. And then I look at this and I'm like, man, what the hell, girl? Come on. And then you have those feelings of worrying about other people judging you, because if anybody knows about your story, they're going to look down on you. So there are moments where I walk into a room now and I'm afraid to hold my head up high because I'm ashamed of what I allowed myself to go through for so long. And, that is something that I'm working on and I'm getting better about. And I know For instance, like once I post this video, I'll receive a lot of support, but there's a good chance that I'm going to receive some backlash. I always do. And that's one of the reasons why us survivors generally don't talk. We stay silent because we're too afraid to come forward, because we're in a situation that people don't see what is actually going on underneath those layers. So they see us and they're like, oh, she's lying. Like, she's just making it up. Like, oh, stop crying. Like, you stayed because it wasn't that bad. And like, oh my gosh, like, it was just normal everyday stuff. You just like, you're just being dramatic. And it's like, were you there? Were you in my home when I was fearing like just existing? Were you there? Do you know the dynamic? Because I don't know what you got going on in your life, and I'm not trying to judge. I'm not trying to attack you. But there are people out there that will do that, and I'm fine with that. I mean, I truly believe that I've gone through these experiences to take a stand. I am strong enough to do that. I am at a point in my life where I am fearless of that idea. I before all of this erupted, I actually had a giant phoenix tattooed on my back. Even before all of this, knowing that what my life was going to become, and it means even more to me now because I have been able to literally lose everything and have my entire life in ashes twice now in my adult life. And I have risen even stronger now compared to the first time when everything happened with my ex-husband. This evolution has been the biggest blessing. Although the most pain has come from this process and this situation, the most growth has also been occurring. I truly believe that when your life is about to launch you where you need to be, there is a lot of loss, there is a lot of pain, because things are being removed from your table that don't need to be there anymore to make room for what does. And it's going to be even better than what is ever there. You know, the grief that I felt from all of this was not from the loss of the relationship, it was the loss of myself. And I'm excited for this journey now because I am finding myself again, and even better than what it used to be. Like that old girl, she gone. She gone. We made some mistakes. We learned, and now it's time to move forward. It's time to evolve into an even badder baddie, an even happier person, a stronger person mentally and physically, so that I can help other people. I'm a survivor, and I'm here to be the voice for those that are too afraid to come forward. So please know that you're not alone. This is a difficult process. People will not understand, but there are people like myself and so many others out there that do. So if you watch this video and you're sitting there being like, this is me, and I don't feel like I have anything or anyone to talk to, please reach out. Shoot me a message on Instagram. It's Landry Lifts a Lot on Instagram. I'll put it in the remarks as well. But you can get out. You are not crazy, even though these people make you feel like you're crazy. And you are, most importantly, not alone. So thank you for listening. And I hope that this was helpful. And I will be back with more videos talking about my journey and survival and all the things. So thanks again for your time, and have a great weekend.